Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for watching. It is the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Thank you for joining live on a Friday night. Do appreciate you being here. And we're going to start out with a story from Indianapolis. Indianapolis teenager has been charged with 6 counts of murder for allegedly shooting family members and a pregnant woman on this past Sunday. News that we broke here on the American Doofus Show. It was the worst mass shooting in the past decade in Indianapolis. Raymond Childs III, 17 years old. He was also charged with attempted murder of his brother. His brother had fled the house after the initial shooting. And he's also been charged with carrying a handgun without a license. And he's being charged as an adult due to his age and the allegation of murder. So sad situation in Indianapolis. And again, we regret having to report breaking news like that, like we did last week when this word of this horrific incident came out. We're staying in Indiana with the second story on the live tonight. This is about 2 people, 3 people actually in total from Indiana that have been arrested or have been charged. One of them has not been found yet. All of this stems from January 6th and what happened in Washington, D.C. 2 Central Indiana residents were involved. 2 men are facing federal charges in the insurrection. Joshua Wagner of Greenwood and Israel Tutro of Greenfield have been charged with knowingly entering a restricted building, disorderly conduct which impedes the conduct of government business, disruptive conduct in the Capitol building, and parading, demonstrating, or picketing inside the Capitol building. Wagner has turned himself into police, and according to an FBI spokesperson, he has been questioned. Tutro was taken into custody earlier, so he has been taken into custody. According to a statement of fact by the FBI, photographs show both Wagner and Tuttle inside the Capitol building on January the 6th. Now, also, they're not the only ones facing charges for what happened from Indiana. Earlier in the month, John Ryan Schaefer, a native of here in Central Indiana and founder of the band Iced Earth, was accused of using bear spray on a police officer. It's a pepper-based irritant, and it's sold at a lot of outdoor stores. He fired that off at various police officers as the insurgents were forcing their way into the Capitol. He faces 6 charges, including engaging in an act of physical violence in a Capitol building. And that's according to the FBI. And since we're at the Capitol building, the third story tonight is U.S. Capitol Police arrested a West Virginia man armed with a handgun and 20 rounds of ammunition. He was just outside near the Capitol building, and he was a 71-year-old. His name's Dennis Westover, and he had stopped the steal paperwork with him and had a list of senators and representatives in the U.S. Congress and also in the West Virginia State House, along with all of their contact information. He said, "We have some polar extremes of opinion in this nation, and that while he believes there was election fraud at this point is a moot point." He said that the process I'm engaged in is righteousness, justice, and truth, according to police. So this is not going to be an isolated incident with armed people either being caught or successfully discharging their weapons at members of Congress and members of the media, at Joe Biden, at Kamala Harris. It's a very dangerous time. We're basically in a civil Cold War, if you will. Those that were and still are ardent Trumpers of support of the former president, and those that support democracy and free and fair elections and the peaceful transfer of power, which is thankfully what we witnessed on the 20th of January. But there are so many coalitions that can be, not a coalition, but so many comparisons that can be made between things that are happening right now and things that happened during Reconstruction, post-Civil War. And it's not surprising because basically a battle of the Civil War was fought on January 6th. And battle on January 6th to take the Capitol. And then on January 20th, the war was lost when Joe Biden became president. But that does not mean the fighting will cease, or the violence will cease from those in opposition to having the current president in power. And it's a situation I personally never thought I'd see the United States in, but then these past 4 years and some of the things that have happened are things I never thought I would see in the United States either. So thank you for joining me. Let's see, we got JB, Yams, Yisrael, SRT Red Dye, Tracy Beck. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to hop over to the comments here in just a minute. I want to touch on briefly. I want to touch on the EAR panel we did on Wednesday, and I want to thank T-Rex. I want to thank Comedic King, and I want to thank Marie Justice for joining myself and Apollo and Star on that panel on Wednesday. And I need to mention that the comments of the panelists, the opinions of the panelists are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect EAR, End All Racism, or the American Doofus Show necessarily. And while in the beginning, EAR and the American Doofus Show are kind of sharing a platform as we launch EAR. Eventually, as I've said in the past, it will be its own channel, and it will be a private channel. So we'll talk more about that coming up in the near future. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that what EAR is about unity. It's about unifying over the issue of ending racism. It's not about specific religions. It's not about specific beliefs other than the belief that racism should be ended. It's not a pro-black group. It's not an anti-black group. It's not a pro-white group. It's not an anti-white group. It's not a pro-Hispanic or anti-Hispanic or pro or anti-Native American. It's a group about humanity and ending all racism, no matter where it may rear its ugly head and in what capacity. Because racism is not a black and white issue, if you will. So it's about unity for us in EAR, unifying different cultures to have power, to have the power have the first of all to be heard, and then to actually make change. And I hope you'll consider joining with us. It's about learning from our past, surviving our present, and building our future. And while that may sound simplistic, there are going to be people that want to stop all three of those, want to stop learning from the past, want to change history, that want to erase history. There are those. There are those that do not want a peaceful present. There are those. And there will be those that do not want us to build toward a future. There will be those. So what we're trying to do is not easy. It's not going to be simple. It's not going to be quick. But it's necessary that we start, because this is just one small little piece in so many pieces that need to come together for real change to happen. So that's what I wanted to say about EAR. And I've got the three stories for tonight. Again, 17-year-old has been charged with the killing of 6 people, including an unborn child, when he killed a pregnant woman, and in Indianapolis, and also charged with attempted murder of his brother. 3 people from Indiana currently facing federal charges for their part in January 6th. And we're going to have to name January 6th, because we can't just keep referring it to January 6th. We need to come up with a name for that date, the infamous date. And third and final story was the 71-year-old with a 9mm and 20 rounds, parked in the middle of an intersection in Washington, D.C. with members of Congress and members of the West Virginia House of Representatives and State Senate, with their names and information. So we are in unique times, to say the least. So I'm going to go over to the comments for a few minutes while we're on live, about 10-15 minutes or so, and see what's going on. JB, good evening. Shalom. Jay Bruce, good to have you in the house. Tracy Beck, Jacqueline, hello. SRT Red Eye, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you supporting the channel. Hello, Tammy. Let's see. Racism has had its day. Time to heal. EAR. Change is possible. Thanks for the show. We will change the future for the next generation through the upcoming generations. Boy, I hope you're right, Tammy. That's indeed our goal. January 6th, Doofus Day. I don't know about that. I got all my streams taken down from January 6th, and myself along with just about everybody on YouTube and most other social media had things scrubbed. And I hope it's not to try to rewrite history. Immediately after January 6th, immediately after they occupied the Capitol, it started with this was Antifa and BLM in disguise. And what the right does is they do something that's wrong, and then they blame someone else for doing it and pretend to be a victim of what they themselves have done. You can look at it time after time, incident after incident after incident. You know, they caused something. They try to blame it on someone else and then also play the victim of what happened. Um, I've had it happen to me personally. I've had people do the exact same thing that they do on a bigger scale. Some of the people in the right wing. And if we're aware of it, it's easy to see. If we're not aware of it, it comes across as them just telling another lie. But there's so much more to it. Now the lies catch up average people. The lies catch up good people. The lies ensnare people, and they hear the lies so much that they don't understand it's a lie. And that's where a lot of Americans are right now. I'm guessing 35% of the country is in that condition, that it's Donald Trump or nothing, that they have love for this human. And of course, we're supposed to have love for all humans, but they have a infatuation, a cult of personality attachment. And they're either going to drag the Republican Party down with them, or they will become emboldened and possibly drag the whole country down with them, unless things are taken seriously and addressed. Racism does have to end, and it's not a simple thing, but having the courage to talk about ending it is the beginning. Acknowledging that there is a problem is a beginning, and getting white people to have the courage to acknowledge that there is a problem is a beginning. And if we can get white people to just say, "Hey, man, I had nothing to do with this, but I am sorry it happened," that'll be a huge step towards healings, towards reconciliation. Because we got 400 or 500 years of history that we've got to put in the rear view mirror. We've got to learn from it and not repeat it. And there are those that want to repeat it. There are those that want to go backwards, and not just a few years backwards. I totally agree with that. SRT, Trump doesn't care about anyone except himself. Trumpers better wake up. I totally get that. I totally agree with that. And one day they will wake up. And some of them are waking up right now. Some of them are waking up when they understand that they're facing 10 years in federal prison for something that was instigated by a giant lie. And they acted on what they thought was a necessity. To them, the vote had been stolen, despite the fact that there was no proof of it, just because Donald Trump and his minions said so. And that's dangerous. And that hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away at all. I don't get too political on here very often, but there are many Republicans that are still sucking pretty hard on Trump's ass, to be just flat, blunt, and honest. And I don't know why. I really don't. And then you got people like Ted Cruz that want to be president in 2024, who's trying to both suck on Trump's ass and distance himself from Trump. Politics, and a lot of politics is theater. When I was asked to run for Congress, I studied a whole bunch of different things because I wanted to have the answers. I wanted to be the best prepared candidate. And being the best prepared candidate doesn't mean bullshit. Doesn't mean nothing. It means absolutely zilch. It's all about money. It's a big game. It's all about power. It's what we have at the moment. It's what we've let happen over the course of decades for just not paying attention, not being involved, whatever it may be. We as a country have allowed our government to be staffed, if you will, by a bunch of self-indulgent self-servants instead of public servants. And we're going to have to address that. And we need to address that in 2 years. We need to address that in 2022. Anyway, True Soldier, man, good to hear from you. Peace, brother. I'm glad to hear from you. I'm glad to know that you're out there, and I hope you're safe and well. And Moondog, Donald Trump turned his back on all of his believers. I would, if I was a Donald Trump person, the first question I'd have to ask myself is, why did he not issue a blanket pardon for everyone involved in January 6th at the Capitol? It was well within his power, and none of them would be facing any charges because it didn't benefit him. Wake up. Wake up. It's all about him. None of it's about you. None of it's about you. And you're all caught up in your in this lie that you've been hearing for 4 years. Wake up, look around. You got a pickup truck, you got a bass boat, you've got an indoor pool, possibly. If not, you probably got a big outdoor pool. You live in a nice house, you got some land, or you live in a nice neighborhood. And your life, you're not losing any of your freedoms other than wearing a mask during a pandemic that everybody else has to do. So get over yourself. It's white privilege if it's not white supremacy. And both of them are incredibly damaging. And one of them's deadly. And one of them leads to the other one. And most people can figure out which they are. And that's what Wednesday, January 6th will be. White Wednesday. The day that we saw white supremacy. The day that we saw white privilege. The day that we saw white anger. The day that we saw white hatred. The day that we saw white violence. The day that we saw that a lot of people that have been shouting back the blue, didn't mean it then and don't mean it now. It's White Wednesday. That's what January 6th is. White Wednesday. Now, there were people of color scattered here and there in all of that was happening. But it was orchestrated, it was led by, and it was carried out by the vast majority of angry white people. We saw what some in the white race are all about on White Wednesday, January 6th. That's the new day. It won't catch on because I started it, but nonetheless, that's what I'm going to be using from now on. Yeah, I'm trying to just keep it real. I really am. If that would have been a majority black crowd attacking the Capitol building on January 6th, we would be talking about hundreds dead. We would have been talking about police shooting people randomly. Not that they would be wrong doing so if they were overwhelmed and overrun by a mob. But we didn't talk about that because it was White Wednesday. And that's real. And that's real. And you know it's real. Whether you want to accept it or not, that's a different story. But it's real. There are two systems. No, not on paper necessarily, but at times, yeah, even on paper. just came across the line. A black deputy had been killed in the line of duty, and he was told he couldn't be buried in a cemetery that his family had chosen because it was for white people only. And this is 2021. I get a lot of videos sent to me, and I share snippets here and there on the show. And Marie, not Marie Justice, but a different Marie, sent me a video that I haven't been able to use yet. And it's about the whole video features a white guy that's really upset about racism. And it was good to see, because there needs to be more white people upset about racism, in my opinion. And I think there are. And I don't know if they'll come out. I don't know if they'll break their silence. I don't know if they'll follow their hearts. But I do know they should. Moondog, that's a good name for it. Yeah, White Wednesday. To America's true soldier. I understand that sentiment, and I mentioned earlier that EAR is about unity, and not about segregation or separation. But I totally understand why. I totally understand why a lot of people in the Black community want their own community. They want to be just left alone. And sadly, I don't think it will ever happen. But I totally understand why they seek it. I do. I totally understand, and I don't blame them for it. And I'm just keeping it real. That's my opinion. Okay, that's not a statement of this is what America believes. That's what Donald Trump says. This is what America believes, thinking that America believes the same thing he believes. And about 35% do, regardless, of whether it's sticking a fluorescent bulb up your ass to cure COVID, or whether there's Chinese military bases under every state in the country. I do want to touch on one more thing before I get off. If anybody has any questions or comments for me, get them up in the next couple of minutes, if you would, please, so I can address them before I get on this topic I wanted to talk about, because it's the topic of racism. So they're not coming out. All they want is free labor off blacks. We built this fucking country. Where's our reparations? Grandmaster Jay taught a lesson to a lot of people about reparations, that you can't give reparations to individuals. Reparations only go to a set to a people, or to a country. And most of the time it goes to a country after a war. United States goes and bombs the hell out of whatever country we're bombing the hell out of. And then we send them a bunch of money in reparations afterwards to try to build things back up after we blew them all to hell. The Black community, from the time of Reconstruction, has been made numerous promises. The Native American community, since the time the first white person set foot here, has been made numerous promises. The Hispanics that are here, they've been discriminated against. They've been mistreated. They um, and it's not because of anything other than being different. And that's such a privileged, such a superior, such a supremacist way to think. And a lot of people that think that way don't think it's wrong because they thought that way their whole life. They think everybody else is wrong. Tammy, if only Bob and Yass could cure racism. I wanted to share a little something on the topic of racism, and this is from Wikipedia. Racism in the United States has existed since the colonial era, and it involves law, practices, attitudes, and actions which discriminate against various groups based on their race or ethnicity. Whilst most white Americans enjoy legally or socially sanctioned privileges and rights, these same privileges and rights can be denied to members of other races and minority groups. European Americans, particularly affluent white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, or WASPs, are said to have enjoyed advantages in matters of education, immigration, voting rights, citizenship, land acquisition, bankruptcy, criminal procedures, basically throughout American history. African Americans have faced restrictions on their political, social, economic freedoms throughout much of United States history. Native Americans have suffered genocide, forced removals, and massacres, and they continue to face discrimination. In addition, East Asians, South Asians, Southeast Asians, along with Pacific Islanders, have also been discriminated against. Hispanics have continuously experienced racism in the United States, despite the fact that many of them have European ancestry. Middle Eastern groups, such as Jews, Arabs, and Iranians, continuously face discrimination in the United States. And as a result, some people who belong to these groups do not identify as and are not perceived to be white. Major racially and ethically structured institutions and manifestations of racism include genocide, slavery, segregation, Native American reservations, Native American boarding schools, immigration and naturalization laws, and internment camps. Formal racial discrimination was largely banned by the middle of the 20th century, and over time, it came to be perceived as being socially and morally unacceptable. Racial politics remains a major phenomenon, and racism continues to be reflected in socioeconomic inequalities. In recent years, research has uncovered extensive evidence of racial discrimination in various sectors of modern U.S. society, including the criminal justice system, business, the economy, housing, healthcare, the media, and politics. In the view of the United Nations and the U.S. Human Rights Network, quote, discrimination in the United States permeates all aspects of life and extends to all communities of color. Some Americans saw the presidential candidacy of Barack Obama, who served as president of the United States from 2009 to 2017 and was the nation's first Black president. They saw this as a sign that the nation had entered a new post-racist age. The election of President Donald Trump in 2016 who was a chief proponent of the racist birther movement in the United States, which lied that Obama was not born in the United States when actually he was born in Hawaii and has a birth certificate. And Trump ran a racially tinged campaign. Trump has been viewed by some commentators as a racist backlash against the election of Barack Obama. It means they were so mad that a black man had been president for 8 years that they were going to elect an asshat just because he wasn't black. Before and after the election, Trump has had a history of speech and actions that have been widely viewed as racist or racially charged. During the mid-2010s, American society has seen a resurgence of high levels of racism and discrimination. Again, during the 2010s, America's society has seen a resurgence of high levels of racism and discrimination. One new phenomenon has been the rise of the alt-right movement, a white nationalist coalition which seeks the expulsion of sexual and racial minorities from the United States. Well, if you go sexual minorities, women are in the majority in the United States. So sexually, men are in the minority. If you want to expel all sexual minorities, you're going to be expelling yourself, Jack. Hey, yeah. Since the mid-2010s, the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation had identified white supremacist violence as the leading threat of domestic terrorism in the United States. So, for the past 10 years, white supremacy, the alt-right, the neocon conservative movement, and a lot of these that you'll see in the Southern Poverty Law Center registry, a lot of them will have something to do with God or with Christ in their name to hide the evil and hatred, or to attempt to anyway, from the average person. And that is especially sad and especially troubling. And it is a abomination against the Lord thy God. And it's using the Lord's name in vain. It's using Christ's name in vain. It's using God's name in vain. Now, when Jesus comes back, according to the scripture, when Jesus comes back, Jesus isn't going to come back as a loving fellow who wants to give everybody a chance. We have had our chances. We are having our chances. Jesus is going to come back with a vengeance, according to scripture. And but yet the Jesus that we serve currently, those of us that do so, is a loving person of peace, and is not representative of what some of these groups are trying to do, in my opinion. And all this is just my opinion. It's Friday Night Live. We've read the news, and I'm giving you a little something of what I think, and something for you to think about. Sounds like we need to be talking about reparations for so many groups, but I'm partial to reparations for Black Americans. We could talk about reparations, and we could talk about the trillions of dollars the United States is in debt at the moment. But from my experience, from my interactions, most people in communities of colors, it's not about reparations necessarily. It's about equality. It's about, just give us an equal chance. Don't stack the deck against us constantly. Don't make us start out 10 yards behind. You know, just do things equally and fairly. And there are a lot of people that have trouble doing that. And I talk spiritually just a little bit. I don't do a lot of that on this program. That doesn't mean that I don't spend a lot of time thinking that way and trying to act in a positive spiritual manner. It just means I don't talk about it in public a lot. I said a prayer on here one time, and by golly, I think it worked, because we didn't have any violence at all on January 20th. And I am a betting man. I do. It's legal here in Indiana to put a few dollars here and there on Sportsbook and or on DraftKings, on DraftKings, and every once in a while I'll put a $5 bet on something. So I would have bet, and if I'd had money, I'd have bet big that something would happen on the 20th of January on the inauguration, and nothing did. I'm assuming that's to the credit of law enforcement. And again, I've never degraded law enforcement in total. I've always said that there are bad cops and there are good cops, just like there are bad preachers and good preachers, and bad anything and everything, bad teachers and good teachers, and there are people that are just about taking advantage and not about actually helping people. So, so I've never said do away with the police. And when law enforcement, I'm giving them credit for something I don't know they did, but I have a really good feeling that law enforcement stopped some things from that potentially happening on the 20th of January. In all honesty, from a strategic standpoint, I do not understand what happened on White Wednesday. I don't understand. They took the Capitol. If they would have brought in reinforcements, if they would have held the Capitol, if they would have held any and all hostages they could find, they wouldn't have had to hold the Capitol all the way till the 20th of January for inauguration. They'd only had to hold it for a couple of days, and they would have won. But thankfully, they walked away. And I think they walked away because they didn't have leadership. They had organizers, they had instigators, they had people shouting really loud, go this way, come here, come here, come here. They had a plan. They executed their plan. They achieved their mission. They had a plan, and I warned for 2 weeks ahead of time that it was coming, that they were going to overrun the Capitol, take hostages, and hold the Capitol. And people thought it was nuts all the way up until it actually started happening. But they executed their mission. Their mission was to take over the Capitol building and to try to get hostages and to hang Mike Pence, according to some of them. But they didn't have any plans after that. They accomplished their mission, and then it's like, then what? We did what we came here to do. Now let's leave. And of course, they left with their white privilege, even if they're not white supremacists. They left with their white privilege of nothing's going to happen to me for what I've done. And I'm going to immediately start blaming somebody else for what I've done. And I just got pushed in the door as part of the mob. It was never my intention to break the law, but that's how it played out in a lot of situations. All you have to do is do a little digging in newspapers and local newspapers and hear accounts of people all around the country that are being arrested right now. None of them did anything wrong. None of them did anything wrong on White Wednesday. So I'll never understand why they just walked away, except for the fact, thankfully, they didn't have any leadership there. You know, they didn't have a colonel or a major or a general that had a bigger picture plan. They just had Billy Bob and Jim Cooter and whoever else that had their own little groups that were going to get into the building, and they did so, and they did so successfully, and they did so really rather efficiently. And thankfully, that's all they did. They walked away, because it could have been totally different. Donald Trump could be president of the United States right now and be president for life. Something to think about. If things would have went just a little bit different on White Wednesday. Yeah, something to think about. All right, been on here long enough. I thank you all. Love you all. Proud Boys working with the feds. Wow. Yes, that was one of my stories yesterday or the day before on a previous episode. The leader of the Proud Boys, it has been determined, was working with the federal government as an informant as far back as 2008. So was this Proud Boys thing a total COINTELPRO? I don't know. There's a petition for honorary stocks and guaranteed dividends to be allotted to Black people from corporations that profited from slavery. I don't see anything wrong with a petition like that. Anybody else have anything before I get out of here? I'll be back Sunday night. I'm going to do Sunday night weekly wrap, do that live and take your questions and talk with you. Man, we're going to try, True Soldier. We're going to try to do something with EAR that hasn't been done, and it's going to have a lot of different branches. Again, it's going to have its own channel. It doesn't right at the moment. It's EAR Wednesday on the American Doofus Show, and Wednesday's an EAR episode. Soon it will have its own platform, its own channel. And we've got some things in the works that we hope we can put together. One of which is I want to bring in a whole bunch of guest speakers to talk about history. I want to bring in all different cultures to talk about history because it's not being taught, and it's not being taught on a big scale anywhere, and we need to learn from our past. So that's one of the branches. Another branch is going to be the mentorship, and one thing we're going to do in this mentorship thing is we're going to eventually have an app, and we're going to hook people up from different cultures and just have them text each other and just start conversations. And for some, it won't work. Some will be like, I don't want this, and we'll hook them up with somebody else. For some, friendships will grow and understanding will materialize. And when you actually have facts, when you actually have experiences with people, when you actually have communication, when you actually share laughter, when you sing a song, when you high five after a home run, we're all people, and a lot of it is just white people getting off your high horse and understanding that Christianity is about humility. It's not about greed and wealth. And any preachers and pastors that are telling you anything different are liars and are not talking out of the Bible. And that's going to be my last word. I love you all. Peace, peace, peace. It's still a dark world. Man, it's still a dark world. So try to be a light and consider giving us some thought about EAR. And if you want to support me directly in the program, it's $sign American Doofus, all one word, as far as Cash App. Or you can become a supporter for like $2.99 a month, like SRT and Tammy and 100% Black Rack. My very first supporter was 100% Black Rack, and I'll never forget her for that. Danny Sales is a supporter, and there are more, and I thank you all. And all you got to do is hit the join button if you want to do that. Again, the Cash App. Look at it as you're buying me a cup of coffee. Give a $5 donation. If 200 people did that a week, I could pay all my bills and focus on nothing else but this and EAR. And that's where I'm hoping we can get, because there's a lot of work to do and a lot of focus needed. And I love you all. I really do. I mean that sincerely. I thank those of you that hung with me throughout the entire live. I thank those of you that are watching now that this is recorded. And please subscribe if you haven't. Like, share, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going to be on live. And love one another right now. It's the American Doofus Show. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Until next time, peace. Don't be a doofus. I love you.